Well, we start today's training about the mind and how to mobilize it for healing and recovery, specifically from cancer, with the understanding that it is possible and that people have done it, not once, not twice, but many times. During my 22 years in practice, I've seen this happen again and again. And we live in a day and age where, thankfully, the many blessings of medicine can help us achieve all kinds of miracles. But if you've seen any of my previous videos or read my book, The New Cancer Paradigm, before, then you know that I preach that our medical team's job is to take care of our physical body. Our job is to take care of the person within this physical body, that is us, ourselves. We're the only one who are able to do that. So hopefully today's training will resonate with you guys, will inspire you to take some action, and will help you better understand what each and every one of us can do as we are facing cancer. And it really doesn't matter if you are currently in the thick of treatment or you're a survivor or you're a caretaker. There's a lot that you will be able to get from today's training. Let me just say hello, Monica and Carmen and Nicole. Thank you. I see some familiar faces here, and it's always nice to have. When we talk about the mind, just kind of for a better understanding, I want you to understand that we're talking about the self, the non-physical part of who we are, not the brain. The brain is the 3-pound gray organ in our skull, and that is the switchboard, more or less. The mind is the non-physical part of who we are. It's an activity, and we're going to dive deep into what the mind is and maybe use some visual diagrams to better explain what the mind is, so that you can have a better understanding of how to put it to work, because no one has seen the mind. If you cut the body open, you will not see the mind. And so it is always helpful when working with things that are not of physical nature to have some visual context, and I will offer you that as well. When I ask some of my clients and maybe other people that I've met that have gone through cancer treatment, that have healed themselves from cancer, when I ask them how they have done it, many of them, if not most of them, will not be able to tell me how they've done it. In other words, they are unconsciously competent. They've done what they've done, but they cannot explain what they've done. And I feel it's incredibly important for us to be able to understand how to do this, right? I mean, we want to be able to inspire everyone to do it. So we want to become very competent at understanding the mind, understanding how the mind works, and how we can mobilize it, what it means even to mobilize it for healing and recovery, specifically from cancer, even though this can apply to any state of health or any other challenge in our lives. So when we talk about the mind, we're talking about the non-physical part of who we are. By most schools, there is what we call the conscious mind and the subconscious mind, and by some schools there is the unconscious mind. Today we are just going to focus on the conscious and subconscious mind, because the unconscious mind is of no use to us. We have no ability, no agency with the unconscious mind. So we're just going to focus on what we can do and what we can engage with, and that will be incredibly sufficient. When we talk about the mind, we talk about we talk about life, we talk about living, and we talk about universal laws. The same laws that govern this world we live in, whether it's the law of gravity that impact every one of us, the law of polarity, the law of vibration. We talk about certain universal laws that are known to science, govern our experience, and they impact each and every one of us. And this is important to say, because I want you to understand that if one person, even if one person out of the whatever 9 or 8 billion people in this world, even if just one person was able to heal themselves of cancer, that means that each and every one of us have access to the same capacity. That is because we live in an orderly universe. There are certain laws that function here, and we can put them to work. We just have to understand what they are and how we can put them to work. The unfortunate reality is that no one teaches this in school. They teach us stuff that is valuable, certainly important. It's information, but no one really teaches us about ourselves, our mind, our mental faculties, and how to put them to work. And they teach us how to memorize, they teach us how to retain information, but they don't teach us how to think. And this is a problem because for the most part we're all very certain that we're thinking. But what we are essentially doing is taking input through our 5 senses, right? Sight, smell, touch, taste, hearing. We take information through our 5 senses, and they trigger mental activity. But mental activity does not constitute thinking. And we'll talk a little bit more about that and what thinking really means in terms of healing and recovery, and what each and every one of us can do today, right after we are done, to start improving your odds for recovery and playing a more significant role in your recovery. If you do have any question, please put it in the chat. I'll do my best to answer your questions. And if there is something that requires clarification, please do not hesitate to ask. I would love this conversation to be informal and informative, and ask away. So one of the laws that I want to talk about, one of those universal laws, is the law of vibration. The fact that everything in this universe is vibrating. If you break it down to bits and pieces, to atoms and molecules, you will see through the lens of a microscope that everything vibrates or dances, right? It's all energy in motion. And when we talk about vibration, we talk about plants and rocks and our physical body as well. Why is this important? It's important because essentially our body is a molecular structure that is vibrating at a very high rate of vibration. When I talk about energy, by the way, this is not some spiritual concept. This is not some esoteric idea. It's science. And we have a field of scientific study. Again, if you've seen my videos or read my book, you know that big word, psychoneuroimmunology. I encourage each and every one of you to do the research and find out for yourself. Psychoneuroimmunology is essentially a field of scientific study that investigates the correlation between certain mental and psychological patterns, mental activity, and the functioning of our immune system via the central nervous system. So we know for the past at least 60 years, well, almost 60 years, since psychoneuroimmunology was coined and this field of study started flourishing, we know that there are certain states of mind that impact or impair the functioning of our immune system, the ability of our immune system to do what it's designed to do, which is to engage or to eliminate any abnormalities in the blood. An optimal immune system knows how to do that. It's been doing that since day one. It's been healing our body from the moment we were born, healing our scrapes, our wounds, even mending broken bones. It doesn't need necessarily anything else. We come into this world for the most part intact, complete. So we have this incredible capacity within. It's an innate capacity. We don't need it from outside. We don't need it. We don't have to buy it in any store. It comes prepackaged in our body, so to speak, and we are going through life, and at some point, for whatever reason, and we're not going to get into that particular question now, but for some reason our immune system got influenced or rendered less effective, and disease agents and carcinogens were able to thrive, and illness developed. Now, we live in an orderly universe. In other words, we have to breathe in and breathe out. There is day and night. There is plus and minus. There is a world of duality that we live in. If we have experienced things one way, we can also experience them the other way. In other words, if our immune system was rendered for whatever reason vulnerable or less effective, there are ways for us to enhance our immune system so that it can be restored to its optimal level of functioning. This is what immunotherapy and science is all about. If you are in treatment right now, you might have had that discussion with your doctor about immunotherapy or biotherapy. These are important questions to ask, because there are all kind of brand new treatments or breakthrough treatments that have came about in recent years, and science and medicine is getting better and better at producing better and better treatment options for each and every one of us. One of them is immunotherapy. So while we're not in our doctor's office, what can we do to enhance the functioning of our immune system? Well, we can learn to address those mental and psychological patterns that I mentioned, and we can talk a little bit more about that. Or we can also learn how to utilize our mind in a more efficient way. And in a moment, I'll explain exactly what that entails, how we can do it, and how we can actually harness our mind and focus and attention, our mental faculties, our higher mental faculties, to our advantage. Because currently, by default, since we have not been taught how to do this properly, we are likely, these higher mental faculties, if not dormant, they are currently working not in our favor, because by default we are programmed for survival. That's where our dependency on our five senses comes from, because we require information from the environment. We want to make sure that we're safe, and we learn to rely on our senses, five senses. And so we develop this dependency, and we cannot, or we find it challenging to think independently of those mental, of those five senses. So what we want to be able to do here today is learn the mechanism and then how to deploy it. Okay? Let me make sure I haven't missed anything. By the way, I talked about everything vibrates. To this vibration, there is vibration is frequency, essentially, and frequency is information. And one of the analogies that I like to use for thoughts, for example, perceptions, the mental activity that is going on in our mind, one of the things that I like to talk about, or the analogy I like to use, is one of an orchestra. So if your thoughts, if your beliefs, if your perceptions were musical instruments in your orchestra, would you be able to tell me, or maybe you can put it in the chat with some vulnerability, what would be the sound of your mind? If you listen to the orchestra of your mind, if your beliefs, your perceptions, and your thoughts were instruments, would the sound be harmonious or disharmonious? Would your sound be uplifting, inspiring, expanding, or would it be more like the soundtrack of a horror movie, fearful, full of fear and tension? So if you're comfortable, please share in the comments what would be the sound of your mind. I know that for many years my mind's sound or soundtrack, it wasn't the greatest, and I had to work really, really hard at that, and that's what I teach my clients to do. Mine would sound like a crystal ball. I appreciate that. Thank you. But oftentimes, if we're honest, we will have to agree, or at least recognize, or if we're honest with ourselves, you don't have to share it here. But oftentimes, our most intimate thoughts are not very uplifting and supportive. The inner conversation that each and every one of us have is very often not very inspiring, not very calming, not very comforting. If a friend would talk to us this way, it's probably, they will probably not be our friends for a lot longer. So what are we to do? First, I want you to understand that all of us have been programmed by our senses, or by our 5 senses, for survival, and therefore we mean evaluating threat levels, and that's because we feel on some level perhaps insecure, perhaps helpless, and unable to sustain ourselves. I mentioned in previous trainings that I've done here that we fall into fear or stress out, get anxious for 2 main reasons. One is all about perception, and the other is about belief. In other words, we perceive a situation to be dangerous, difficult, or painful. That's the first one. And the second one is belief. We do not believe we have the inner resources to cope. These are so important. And we don't believe we have the inner resources to cope because we've all been through childhood, and in those early years we didn't have a lot of agency, and certain events have impacted us significantly and caused us a great deal of distress. So we still believe to some extent that we are unable to overcome certain challenges, that we are perhaps insufficient in some way, not good enough, not smart enough, not something enough. So this is our default mental program or mental paradigm. A paradigm is a collection of ideas or thoughts or beliefs that essentially imprison us. And we all have a mental paradigm, and for the most part, if we are with illness, we have to recognize that our mental paradigm, until this point at least, was not the best one. We have to accept that. We're here to tell the truth and acknowledge the truth and take action from here on. We're not here to beat ourselves up for what we didn't know was going on. And that's often the case with my clients. When we find out, when we are diagnosed, we are very much, we're going through the process, and there's the shock and the denial and the anger and all of it. But if you're here, it means that you are ready to take action, move on from there, and be more intentional about it. And I respect that, and I appreciate it, and I appreciate every one of you who's taken the time to be here today. So why are we talking about vibration? Why are we talking about energy? Why are we talking about information? Because thoughts transmit all of that, and thoughts materialize. If we think, for the most part, negative thoughts, if we're not just thinking, if we're focused, if our attention is focused on negativity and difficulty and lack and scarcity, we're going to suffer the consequence of that. Every thought carries some weight with it, and one negative thought may not impact us to that extent, but over time many accumulated negative thoughts will have an impact. Think of a barrel that you can put outside to collect raindrops. It may take one storm, one season, 10 seasons of rain. Eventually it will overflow, and when it overflows, then we have illness. That's the point. So we want to pay attention to our thoughts, and we want to make sure that we begin to think better thoughts. And I'm going to show you how to do that in a minute. We talk about vibration and frequency and information because we cannot be, we only meet in our life, we only experience in our lives that which we are in harmony with. What it means is that if you're listening to the radio every now and then, and you have a favorite station, you know that in order for you to get to that station has a certain frequency, it has a certain number attached to it. And if you dial or dial to the left or to the right, you will not hear that station. You have to dial that particular number in the same way that you have to dial a particular phone number in order for you to reach someone that you love. Now, I want you to understand that frequencies are infinite, And they're not dependent on time and space. In other words, I can be in one location and you can be in another location. If you have my phone number, it is which is a frequency, you will very likely reach me. And anyone else around the world, it doesn't matter where they are. And it's instantaneous. It's a little challenging to kind of apply that to our state of health, because some of my previous clients, they said, well, I'm thinking health and nothing happens. Well, that's because we're very undisciplined, and we haven't learned how to do this properly. And if we're going to think health for 5 minutes, but then spend the next 23 hours and 55 minutes in negativity, we have a challenge at hand. And so we have to learn how to discipline ourselves, and we have to learn how to do this properly, and we have to stick with it, even if we don't get immediate results. And we are now so addicted to immediate gratification, immediate results, that we kind of tend to give up prematurely. We tend to just say, well, it doesn't work for me. Well, as I said before, there are universal laws. It is impossible for you to dial a certain frequency and not get it. It's impossible for you to think a certain thought and not feel its effect. We just haven't known how to do that. My point is that when we focus on illness and procedures and treatments, which are demanding and difficult and oftentimes can be painful as well, our mind is hijacked, our attention is hijacked by fear and negativity and anticipation and worry and all those different things. Our job is to pull away from our thinking when we recognize, when we catch ourselves in the moment. Our goal is, the goal is to recognize where we are and then decide to go elsewhere. In order for any change to happen in this world, you have to know where you are and you have to know where you want to go. It's as simple as that. By the way, if you look around your room, wherever you are, everything that you will see around you, every object that you will see around you, before it could be manufactured or produced or whatever the process may be, it had to start with an idea. Someone had an idea. If I look at the screen in front of me, it was once an idea, but the materials and the potential existed always. They always have existed. We every now and then see an invention that seems to blow our mind, but the potential for that was always here. And then we say, why didn't I think about it? The potential is here, but someone had to plug themselves in to thinking about it so vividly until they became one with that frequency, and it became clear to them what it is that they wanted to experience. And it doesn't really matter what it is. It can be a simple piece of paper, it can be an electronic device, or anything in between. Someone had to think this thought. Someone had to tap into that frequency in order to make it happen. And by the way, you have done this or used this mechanism before many, many times. And when people say, well, I don't know what you refer to, I'm talking about the very act of worry. When we worry, what are we doing? Essentially, we are focusing on a future potential that isn't here, but we focus on it so intently that we feel its effect right here and right now. When we worry to the point that we give ourselves heart palpitations, we begin to sweat. I mean, we feel it in our body. It's the very reason let's stick with that. When we worry, we put into work this mental mind mechanism. We engage with a potential that isn't here, that may never be here, but we feel its effect right now. So the cliche that we make ourselves sick is a cliche, but there's some truth to it, because we tend to focus on things that are not working to the extent we obsess about them, to the point that we begin to feel them. And when we feel them, they become our experience, if that makes sense. So we've all done this. Most of us, hopefully, also have daydreamed. So we had a certain fantasy in mind that we focused on, but we do this briefly because we dismiss it, because it's not going to happen, because it's not this. But there's a method to this madness, and if we can learn how to do this properly, we can get whatever we can imagine. That doesn't mean that if you want a pair of wings, all of a sudden you're going to wake up in the morning with a pair of wings and be able to soar into the sky, but it means that your mind does impact your biology. And specifically when we talk about our state of health, our mind has the ability to either engage with our biology for wellness or for illness. If the sound of your mental orchestra, your thoughts, beliefs, perception is negative or disharmonious, it is very likely that that will be the impact on your biology. If the sound of your mind is harmonious, then you will have a very different experience. We know, because we use it in our language, when we feel excited and elated, we feel up or we feel high, and when we are depressed, we feel down. We have this intuitive understanding of this notion, but we haven't really learned how to structure it and put it to work for our advantage. One of my teachers used to say that, and I'm going to quote, he said, we're only limited by weakness of attention and poverty of imagination. Weakness of attention and poverty of imagination. That's what limits most of us. And it's unfortunate. It's really unfortunate. Once you understand that the world we live in is an orderly universe, there are certain universal laws. If one person could have done it or achieved this amazing outcome of healing themselves from cancer, that means each and every one of us can do it, because we're all sharing the same traits and qualities. Regardless of what you think of yourself, you have that ability. So what I want to show you right now is a certain model, a visual model, and unfortunately this particular platform, this particular camera does not mirror my my document. So I'm just going to hold a piece of paper. There's some things written on it, but they're going to be upside down, hopefully, but I will explain what things are so that it'll make sense. This, and some of you might have seen this diagram before, this is one of the most important diagrams you'll ever come across. Why? Because as I mentioned, we're talking about the mind. The problem is that no one has seen the mind. When we don't see something, when we don't have a visual understanding of it, we can't understand it. So in order for us to understand it, here is a diagram. I didn't make this diagram. It was created by a guy back in the 1930s, Robert Fleet, concept therapy. The message is incredibly valuable and clear. So what do we have here? We have a picture. This big circle represents the mind. We have the conscious mind and the subconscious mind. These little antennas on top, they are our senses, our 5 senses: touch, taste, sight, smell, hearing. We are familiar with them. So through these antennas, we receive information. Input trigger thoughts, because the conscious mind is the thinking, rational mind. It knows how to think. We are thinking. Then these thoughts are impressed upon the subconscious mind, which is the emotional mind. Thoughts trigger feelings. Feelings impress on the body in sensations, in attitude, in a desire to act. So why is this diagram important to what we are doing? Because we all have been programmed by our senses for survival. That means that we can't discern this between our own thoughts and input. It just flows so rapidly that we are enslaved by this process. What I want you to know about the conscious mind is that it has the ability to reason, to judge, to analyze, to criticize, accept or reject thoughts. if I told you that the sky is actually, let's say, today, not blue, but yellow. For the most part, if you live on Earth, your mind has heard my suggestion through one of your senses, and if you took a look at the sky, you would see that they're blue, and very quickly your conscious mind will take that thought, go into the vault of the subconscious mind where information is, and it will say it doesn't match what I know, so it will reject it. So why is this important? It's important because for the purpose of healing and recovery, specifically healing and recovery, we want to be able to disengage from our senses. That's why meditation is so powerful in that as a vehicle in this process, because we are able to close our eyes and for the most part sit in a peaceful, quiet place and focus inward. When we eliminate our senses, we are able to start thinking properly. The conscious mind, the thinking mind, is able to bring about thoughts, ideas that no one else in the world have ever thought. You can see, or you can choose to activate or think certain thoughts that are brand new, that are original to you. In this case, I would ask you to produce the thought in your mind of yourself already healthy, whole and healed, right? Already recovered, fully recovered, thriving, full of vitality, energized, excited, hungry for life. I would invite you to cultivate a mental image. Use your higher faculties. Now, I'll put this down for a minute because I want to talk about these higher faculties. Our higher faculties are anything from intuition to imagination to reasoning to perception to willpower. These are higher faculties. They're all functions of the mind. We all have them. We all share them. So we can put these to work. Now, when we were young and we used our mental faculties, let's say imagination, we were often, well, in some environments, what we created with our imagination was not received in the best way possible. So we got rejected, we got mocked, we got ridiculed, we got teased, we got that treatment. So we kind of learned on the go that better not share what we are able to imagine or hold in our mind's eye. But imagination is one of the most powerful vehicles we have. So in your mind's eye, even right now, even while you're listening to me, I just want you to hold a mental image or create or craft a mental image. Produce a mental image in your mind's eye of yourself already whole, healthy, healed, recovered, fully recovered, thriving, doing something that you will know that is empowering. For many of my clients, I'm inviting them to what would be the gesture that will symbolize to you that you're on the other end of it, that you're already fully recovered. It can be something like that. It can be some activity. It can be, I had clients that have seen themselves skiing on slopes, jumping into swimming pools, jumping into a beautiful turquoise ocean, digging their feet in the sand. It doesn't matter. Whatever it is for you, I want you to know that this mental image, or craft that mental image and hold it just now, hold it in your mind's eye. And I want you to inject this mental image with emotions. I want you to fire these emotions up of excitement, of you're feeling thrilled, you're feeling elated, you're feeling uplifted. I mean, it's just so intoxicating, and you're fusing your mental image with those powerful emotions. Let me just look at, yeah. You can try. That's correct. You can travel back to India where your heart belongs. I love it. I spent 4 years in India. We can talk about it until the end of time. Yes, absolutely. You can go anywhere. You can do anything. Whatever has or holds power for you. That's what I'm inviting you to do. And you can see it in your mind's eye now. The thing is not just to see it in your mind's eye. The thing is to infuse, to embody or breathe life into that mental image with or through your emotion, via your emotions. Your emotions are a potent injection of power into that mental image. If you just hold a mental image in your mind, but you don't feel the excitement and the thrill and the joy and the love of it, then it stays sterile. If you infuse it with powerful emotions, you are unlocking your subconscious mind's ability to affect change in your body. And I keep talking about the subconscious mind. It's a whole different discussion, but the subconscious mind is the part of your mind that governs many of your bodily functions, from your immune system to your digestion and heartbeat and body temperature. You have no conscious participation in any of those. They happen automatically. So if you want to impress on your subconscious mind, which is the emotional mind, you have to do so with emotions. You have the conscious ability to think with your conscious mind, the thinking mind. Create this mental image of yourself. Hold it in your mind's eye. You can do it with your eyes open, with your eyes closed. You can do it on the subway, on a bus, in your car. Well, hopefully not when you're driving, but anywhere where you have a moment of privacy to yourself, in the privacy of your own mind, and you can fire it up, fire that image, infuse it with powerful emotions, and feel that in your body. Now, thoughts that are disengaged from our senses will trigger emotions that are aligned with those thoughts, and these emotions will impact our biology. I want you to understand that when you feel stressed, your body produces certain hormones, stress hormones like cortisol and so forth. We know that to be true. This is science. We're not talking about anything esoteric. In the same way, but the opposite, because we talked about a universe of duality, when we feel powerful emotions of joy and delight and gratitude and love, then our mind produces different set of hormones. That's why well, there are many different physical activities that we enjoy doing that brings us so much joy, and because it floods the body with endorphins and other powerful chemicals that are good for us and saturate our nervous system and every cell in our body with vitality. The mind, as I mentioned, is an activity. The brain is the switchboard, essentially on and off switches. When we use our higher faculties to produce this powerful cocktail of mental vision and emotions, elated emotions, we force our brain to switch on certain powerful connections that transmit this vibration, that frequency, and that energy to every cell, fiber, gland, and organ in our body. We have learned through science here, through modern medicine, that there are different stages of cancer and different. To the mind, illness is illness and health is health. When we start produce the kind of chemistry that is more associated with health than with illness, then our body will respond accordingly. Your mind, mainly your subconscious mind, and that's the kicker, your subconscious mind, as powerful as it is, and it is a goal-achieving agency, but as powerful as it is literal. It cannot tell us the difference between something real and something imagined, which is why when you think about your favorite food, you will begin to salivate, right? Thinking about your favorite food will produce salivation, physical expression in your biology. We utilize the same mechanism just to our advantage. I want you to get it. I hope you can hear this. I wish this recording would be available to you again and again so that you can listen to this. It's not complicated. But most of you, maybe at least oftentimes, maybe not you because you're a special group, but oftentimes when I tell my clients, so I just repeated or counted all the higher mental faculties. Can you tell me what they are? And if they remember one, maybe two, it's fantastic. But most of us just, we're so not grounded and undisciplined that we can't retain the proper information to make it work, or long enough to make it work for us. And I really hope that you can. So I want to say that again. Our higher mental faculties, our intuition and imagination and willpower and perception and reasoning capacity, we have these mental faculties. It's what separates us from every other living thing on this world, in this world. Animals don't have that. Animals have instincts, and they are perfectly at peace with their surrounding. We are not. We are constantly thriving or striving for more. So you want more health? You have to start thinking more health thoughts. You want more vitality and energy, even abundance? You have to start focusing on abundance. And we are currently in a certain location right here. And if we want to get here, we have to start thinking. Remember, I said we can only match energetically, or match what we are in harmony with. So if we are currently in state of health, and this is currently state of illness, and this is a state of health, and we want to be healthy, we have to imagine ourselves already healthy, start thinking and feeling, even if it's not the physical bodily or reality of that moment. We have to disengage our five senses and create a mental reality within our mind using our higher faculties, and fire it up, infuse it with powerful emotions, and impress it upon the body until the body has no choice to follow suit. It is so simple, and yet most people will not do it. They will not do it because we all have that mental paradigm that I mentioned. And I want to, I do this day in and day out. I've been doing this work for 22 years now here in Boston. 22 years. I have an online program, in-person program. This knowledge, this information, this kind of support is valuable to you. There's probably other sources that can inspire you this way, but I want you to understand the truth. The truth is that we live in an orderly universe. If one person was able to heal themselves of cancer by the power of their mind, and this happened not once or twice, it happened many, many times, that means many of us, if not all of us, can do the same. I would say all of us can do the same. It doesn't mean that all of us will get it. Yeah, I want to be very realistic. Doesn't mean that everyone will, but it means that you have within you today, right here and right now, as you listen to me, you have everything you need to make it work, and it's up to you to start engaging with those capacities and faculties. And I'm happy to support you in any way that I can. I'm here today to hopefully inspire you. This is just my service and my joy to be able to reach people that I don't often get to speak with in my day-to-day practice. I want to inspire you to do that. I want to show you that it's possible, that it's doable. You have a thinking mind and a reactive body. As soon as you begin to shift your attention, become more disciplined, as I like to say it, as soon as you get into the driver's seat of your experience, you will start navigating and know where you're going. Because if you're just a passenger in your life, if you're allowing the doctors and other people and external stimuli and everything else, input, impact you, you're not in the driver's seat, you're a passenger. And there was an incredible guy by the name of Lao Tzu. I'm calling the guy, but him a guy. He was a Chinese philosopher by the name of Lao Tzu, and he once said that every battle is won or lost before it's even fought, because it's all about mindset, it's all about attitude. If you approach your current reality and you are with illness and you want to get better, if you currently want to get a better outcome, you have to make the decision, and you have to reach out and get support to do this. I can't tell you enough. All of us are in a mental prison cell that we don't know we're in. It's our mental paradigm. We don't know we're in that. We're confined by our mental paradigm. The door is wide open. And one of the stories that I like, it's from a little pamphlet called The Quantum Leap, is about this author who's saying, I'm sitting in my hotel room and I'm listening to the life and death struggle or dance of a fly trying to push its way through the window pane out to freedom. And that fly is pushing hard and hard. That fly is locked into the belief that pushing harder through the window pane will set that fly free. But obviously, that very idea will kill it. That very idea will cause it to exhaust its whatever life energy it has, and it will die. In the meantime, the door 3 feet to the right is wide open. And I'm inviting you, well, I'm very passionate about it. I'm going to reduce my tone. I will invite you to recognize that there is a way out. It doesn't mean we always get it, but we can always begin to move in that direction. We will always get better outcome if we do. And it's possible using the mind, mainly the conscious mind, to cultivate a certain mental image of yourself already healed and whole and healthy and recovered, and then infuse that mental image with your powerful emotions of joy and delight and excitement and happiness, and just think about everything that can be gained, and you will impress upon your body a different set of chemicals and biology that will bring about your recovery. And I want to say also that this kind of work enhances the efficacy of your medical treatment. We know through research that going into medical procedure, any medical procedure, in the right state of mind will yield a better outcome, better result. We lose less, there's fewer complications, loss of blood, shorter hospital stay, faster recovery rate. I mean, it's right here in front of us, and we want to engage it. We want to take those actions. Feel free to reach out to me. I'll be more than happy to support you in any way that I can. I want to make sure that every person that is facing cancer has the opportunity to take responsible, grounded, realistic actions to move forward. Your medical team job, and I mentioned it at the beginning, your medical team's job is to take care of your body, your physical body. It's not their scope of practice to deal with a person within this body. That's your responsibility. You have to take care of yourself. And the way to do that is by utilizing your mind, mobilizing your mind for healing and recovery from any health condition, specifically cancer, because that's what I focus on. Hopefully, this is what you are here to be inspired to do, heal and recover from cancer. If you have any questions, this is a good time to ask them. I will say that over the 22 years of practice, I've seen many people get tremendous, miraculous results. I've seen doctors or heard their testimonial that when they return to their scans and procedures and visits with their doctors, the doctors are quite confused. They're not sure what happens because they don't work alongside. I mean, they just don't follow the statistics like everyone else. Don't be like everyone else. You want to be what we call an exceptional patient. An exceptional patient is a pain in the ass of your medical team. It means you're asking questions. You want to be informed. You want to know what's going on. And you want to play a more significant role in your healing and recovery. When you play a more significant role in your healing and recovery, you will time and time again get a better outcome. You will feel more empowered. And by the way, this field of scientific study that I mentioned earlier, psychoneuroimmunology, they have measured specifically, they're addressing particular states of mind. One is stress, the other one is helplessness, and the other one is hopelessness. So helplessness and hopelessness, which all of us feel when facing medical jargon and names or in all kind of, I mean, it's just very hard to understand, to comprehend. We don't have any trainings to do that. One day we woke up, now we were diagnosed, and all of a sudden we have to become proficient at all these medical terminologies. It takes doctors minimum 7 years to study. So I want you to understand it's very easy to fall, very natural, almost expected for us to fall into fear, into overwhelm, into despair. We tend to shut down. We tend to feel, blame ourselves. We tend to self-sabotage. We tend to do a lot of different things. Let's do something else. Let's start engaging ourselves, our mental faculties, in a way that they were designed to be engaged with. We are, and obviously that's debatable, but we are what we call a high life form. We have high mental faculties, higher mental faculties that we can put to work. I hope that I've inspired you. Monica, many oncologists only focus on drugs. Yes, well, look, it's their scope of practice. There's no, I know many oncologists, and they all have the best of intentions. They've studied hard to be as knowledgeable as they are about what they're knowledgeable, which is medicine, which is drugs. That's their scope of practice. Many facilities, at least here in the United States, are warming up to the possibility of mind-body centers. But even then, it's very limited. There's acupuncture, yes, massage, yes, maybe some music therapy, Tai Chi, Qigong, and all of those. I'm very much for those practices, but I want you to understand that we have to address our mental paradigm, the blueprint that the mind is using to create the body. I want you to think of the mind as the architect who is drawing this mental blueprint, and I want you to think of the brain as the contractor that is going to work to produce or build according to this blueprint. If we want to change, and I wrote it down because, yes, if you take anything from what I've said so far, I want you to take this. Everything we do, if not accompanied by a change of consciousness, is but a futile readjustment of surfaces. I want you to, I'm going to say this again. Everything we do, if not accompanied by a change of consciousness, is but a futile rearrangement of surfaces. To me, this sums it all up. If all you do, because you can do everything right on the surface. You can exercise and eat well and do your work one way or another. But unless you change the code in your subconscious mind, the mental code in your subconscious mind, nothing will truly change. In other words, we are using modern medicine to address some of these failing parts of who we are, and we can use surgery and radiation and chemotherapy, and we can address them. But if we haven't addressed the mind, then the same conditions that rendered our immune system vulnerable in the first place, they are still intact, and they will manifest again in a different part of the body. We call it recurrences, and we don't want that. By all means, certainly benefit from many blessings of modern medicine, but it's not the whole equation. In the healing equation, there is the physical body, there is the psyche, there are in other words, there's the body, there's the psychology of it, and then there is the mind of it, which is the spiritual aspect, but the secular spiritual aspect of it. And we have to address all these different levels. Cancer impacts a lot more than just your physical experience. And each and every one of you know that to be true. So in order for us to truly get lasting healing outcomes and results, we want to solve the whole equation, not just one part of the equation. And we want to solve the whole equation so that we address the whole person and not just the body of that person, so that we can get to the root cause of it and get the best possible outcome that we can.